Friday, May 22nd is when we're going to have the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream, and you know that you want to come, but you just can't bring yourself to push that click here, right? That little RSVP thing, that little, I know, it's like such an emotionally taxing task to go to the calendar and click the RSVP button, but we need your help. If you're coming, we want to have you. Make sure to RSVP. We want to know to expect you. Hope you enjoy the podcast. I'm Rabbi Patrick, and welcome to Kehillah. So I really mean it. We do need you to RSVP, because here's what happens, right? And listen, I love everybody who I'm talking to right now. At least I hope I love everybody I'm talking to right now. But here's what we do. It's this like ancient Kehillah custom that we wait until the last second to RSVP. And I'm not trying to guilt anyone. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. It's just the thing is we have to buy stuff, right? We have to buy plates and food and ice cream and all these other things. And when we don't know how many people are coming, it's hard for us to judge that stuff. So it really helps us a lot to know that you're coming, especially like not at the last second. So please do me a favor and RSVP. There's plenty of room. It's going to be fun. We're going to have Jewish books that we're going to give away. So it goes with the whole Shavuot thing, right? Jewish learning, all of that stuff. The Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream, pizza, salad. There's going to be some little art stuff for kids to do before we make SHABBAT. Because this is like our first art factory event on Shabbat. So that'll be an interesting one too. So I'm excited about that. But again, we'd love to have you. So please come. Here's the thing about Shavuot. It's my favorite holiday that no one knows anything about. I mean, like, first of all, when you say Shavuot, there's people who look at you like you've made something up. And so if they're of a certain age and of a certain Jewish ethnic background, you say Shavuos, and then suddenly they're like, Shavuos with the cheesecake, right? And then that resonates. That's pretty cool. But it's actually a holiday that progressive Jews should really get behind, I think, in a lot of different ways. So it's an agricultural holiday. It's supposed to be this holiday of pilgrimage, and then it's combined with a theological layer that's placed on top of it that is about the receiving of Torah. Okay, so we have the whole Mount Sinai story, hence the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream, which this is the second time I'm saying a shout out to Rabbi Josh Lesser and the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream at Congregation Beit Chavarim in Atlanta, Georgia. I totally stole that one from you. And you deserve all the credit in the world. B'Shemom Rose, we say. So I think especially the connection to learning is so important and so interesting. And I like the subversiveness in some way of the fact that we have a holiday that is about learning that happens sort of towards the end of the school year, right? Because we should all have some kind of senioritis at this point. We should all it is 90 freaking degrees outside. It was like 50 last week. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like the weather is going through its adolescence. Hot, cold, hot, cold. But the weather's warm. So now suddenly we have like senioritis. Like we're kind of done with learning things. We're done with, thinking big thoughts here. And then what happens? Suddenly we get with this holiday where learning and staying up all night. I used to love it when I did that, like staying up all night to learn. Not a Richmond thing, I've learned. You can do that at KBI, from what I understand. But not a thing with like the parents and kids and Gen Z, and the younger millennials. Yeah, they go to bed at like 8:30. I mean, it's crazy. So as an elder millennial, hot coffee drinker, extraordinaire, really more Gen X than anyone else because my siblings were boomers. I want to stay up all night and learn. No one's up for this. So that's fine. But I love it. I used to love the feeling of sitting in a shul and there's just all of these smart people you're surrounded by, and they just want to teach you and they want to learn with you. And it's just a very beautiful thing. And I feel like, those of us for whom the intellectual pursuits in Judaism are extremely meaningful, this is something that you can take some ownership of. But again, it's different cities have vibes, and the vibe here is like in bed by 10. It's just a culture, and that's okay. So that means you just make adjustments. So for this particular class that we're having right now, because yeah, honestly, I kind of hate calling this a podcast because then it just sounds like I'm supposed to do an ad for like, I don't know, HelloFresh or BetterHelp or something and like give you an affiliate code. Like it doesn't work, right? This is actually adult ed, right? Because people said, hey, I want to learn from the rabbi, but I classes and Midlothian I get it. I get it. So for this class, I'm going to call it that. I wanted to do just some little rapid fire short learning stuff. These are topics that different people have brought up to me. Some of the names are going to remain anonymous, and sometimes it's multiple people who've asked this stuff, so I don't want to give any one person credit. Yeah, I'm just going to like throw some stuff at you. These are just topics that I don't have enough sort of material really to like have a whole episode about this, a whole class about this. So I'm just going to give you what I got, and we're just going to do this thing. So let's get into it. Let's close our eyes if it's safe to do so. Let's take a deep breath. Let's set our kavanah. Let's set our intention. Or let's set our kavanot, our intentions plural, because maybe this is your one time to relax. Maybe this is the one Jewish thing you're going to do this week. Maybe you just kind of needed something for yourself right now. Whatever that means to you. No judgments, right? Take that moment with me, right here, right now, you and I, and all the other people who are going to hear this, all the other Kehillah people. And how about we say the Shema together, right? The central prayer of Judaism. We'll just do that. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And then we say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malkuto Le'olam Va'ed. That works, right? I mean, I guess I could have written something. I'm sure I've done Shema multiple times as our sort of kavanah setting moment, but no one has emailed me and said, "Hey, you're getting a little bit repetitive there with your, opening kavanot." So I'm just not going to worry about things that aren't worth worrying about. Originality is not a Judaism thing. The job is to pull things from the past and to bring them to life, not to always have the new thing. So I'm going to just say a big thank you to the people who have sent questions over time. Sorry if you feel like you should have gotten this sooner, but I promise you're getting it now. And I'm going to email you and let you know that I answered your question. It's not going to be time stamped. I'm sorry. Like I'm not going to, go in and edit like that. So you're just going to have to listen to the whole thing to find yourself. But let's get into it. So we're going to start with Carol, who wants to learn a little bit more about Jewish humor. So I feel like I could teach, really, I could do a whole class just on Jewish humor. And one of the quotes that is really meaningful to me in this idea of Jewish humor is Rabbi Sherwin Wein. You've heard me talk about him before. He's the founder of secular humanistic Judaism, that particular movement. And while theologically, I feel differently than Rabbi Wein, we do start with a very similar premise, which is that Judaism is the culture. It's the culture of the Jewish people. Judaism is to Jews what Hellenism is to the Greeks. When we convert to Judaism, when you're someone like me, it's not really converting to an ism. It's more about becoming part of a people who have a set of tools, rituals, practices, orientations in life, and you join a peoplehood who then assimilate you to that. It's more like adoption than it is like becoming a Christian, I think, or becoming a Muslim or anything like that. Not that I have an experience converting to either of those religions, but anyway. So one of the great things about Rabbi Wein is that he was sort of asked, what's sort of the secular Jewish alternative to tefillah? And he answers by saying it's humor. And that Jewish humor for him always did more for him than prayer ever did. Now, I disagree. Well, I shouldn't say I disagree. His experiences are his own. That has not been my experience, but I mean, who doesn't love a Jewish joke, right? Who doesn't love, here's one. Okay, I'm gonna give you one. This is one of my favorite ones. This is, oh my God. All right, I'm just gonna do it. So, kind of weird doing a joke and no one's gonna laugh back, and I don't know if it's gonna be any good, and I probably have to explain the joke, which then makes it not funny, but whatever. So, there's this grandmother. She's walking with her grandson on the beach. It's a beautiful day. They're having a good time. And suddenly the weather completely changes and it gets dark and terrible out. And then suddenly a great wind gusts over the waters and it grabs the boy. All right. The grandson is swept up in the water. And the grandmother looks around. Oh my God, what do I do? She where's the child? Child's clearly gone. She starts to pray to God, please, please give my grandson back, please, please. And there's the cracking of the ocean, and it keeps getting harder and harder. Please, please, please give me my grandson back. Please, Hashem, please, God, give my grandson back. And then a big wave comes, and the child is riding on it and is pushed right back into his grandmother's arms, and he's being held tenderly by Bubby, right? And she's crying, and she's so filled with emotion, and she looks at the face of her grandson who's just been swept up by these waters and back again, and tears in both of their eyes, and she looks at his face, and then she looks at the sky, and she goes, "He had a hat." Because we all know that person, right? The "he had a hat" person. Like, we know what that's about. um, Great Jewish joke. I love that. And that actually goes back to something that's in the Talmud, which is this idea actually comes from the Torah. It's expanded in the Talmud because that's the whole Mazorah, that's the whole tradition, is this idea that we don't sort of wait for miracles. We don't wait for the heavenly voice in the sky to tell us what to do. The era of prophecy ended with Micah. And so this idea that, like, here's this woman with the chutzpahdik attitude of, like, she looks up at heaven and says, "He had a hat," right? Yeah, it's that. So I love, kind of like, I could do a whole class just on "he had a hat" because there's so many different elements to it. So first of all, is it a particularly Jewish thing? Like, not really, but the end kind of is. And it's hard to say why. I think it's the chutzpahdik thing. I think it's the idea that we are partners with God, which is a very Jewish idea, right? So calling out God is not something that we would see as wrong. It's perfectly acceptable to do that. How many times did the patriarchs and matriarchs and the prophets call out to God? Sometimes in a positive way, in a way of worship, and then other ways disgust and anger and frustration, right? Read the book of Job. The book of Job is all about that. Now, Job wasn't a Jew, but we get the point, right? It's in the canon, right? How many times did we have prophets, wise people who doubted themselves and doubted God's sanity in choosing them, right? Moshe Rabbeinu says, all of the things about his mouth, how he can't speak, right? And Isaiah, his experience of, like, send me, like, after his mouth's been purified by a hot coal, right? It's just there's just so much there of this tension between us and the divine in terms of the nature of the relationship. And so for the grandmother to say he had a hat, like, I mean, it's perfect. It's just perfect in some way. That for me is a great piece of Jewish humor because it shows the tradition, entirely in one thing. I'm gonna give you a second joke, and this one's, like, not quite as funny, and you're probably not supposed to set up a joke by saying it's not funny, but it's kind of hard to do this joke justice. Uh, so, um, so Irving and Abe are walking down the street. It's Shabbat, and they're walking to shul. So as Irving and Abe are walking to the shul, here comes their friend Fred. Fred looks at Irving and Abe, and he asks, what are you doing on a Saturday? Why are you dressed up? And Irving says, well, like we're going to shul, right? And so so the friend Fred turns to Abe and says, well, Abe, I get what Irving is doing, right? He's all dressed up. He's going to shul on Saturday, right? But you're an atheist. What are you doing? And so Abe responds by saying, well, Irving goes to shul to talk to God. I go to shul to talk to Irving. And that's another good Jewish joke, right? So again, it puts us in a place where we are questioning the centrality of the divine, which is I think part of the Jewish thing. This question of, you know, is Jewish history about the idea of redemption, or is it about the fact that there has yet to be redemption, or is it about the fact that there may never be redemption? That is a very, like, if you want to go super, super meta big picture, that's a big part of it, right? The secularization of the Jewish people, obviously you have that. But then you have the fact that, like, of all the places that Abe could go to talk to Irving, he's going to shul to do it, right? Like, I'm sure they could go play golf or go get something to eat or whatever, right? They don't have to go to the synagogue, but the synagogue acts as this very particular important place within which they can have conversation, right? They don't go there because the seats are the most comfortable. They don't go there because the rabbi's that inspirational, although maybe the rabbi is inspirational. I hope I'm inspirational. But there's just something about a sense of place and a way of being with each other that in sacred community, it brings something out. And I guess this is kind of the moment where I want to give a little bit of a plug for Kehillah because, there's times I remember Brittany saying once, there was some Shabbat, I forget what it was, and she said, I needed this. I needed Kehillah. And the number of times I've heard people say that just being with other Jews, like Ray said this, he said, Jews just have a way with each other, right? Now, never mind the fact that a lot of us are converts and a bunch of us aren't even Jewish, but we feel a certain kinship with this human family, but we have a way with each other. I think another great thing I love about Kehillah, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but whatever, we're intergenerational, right? Like I know I know what would make sense is if we had all of these distinct organizations that only deal with certain demographics, right? Like you would have just young adults, and then you would have young families, and then you'd have a B'nai Mitzvah, whatever, and then you would have retirees, and we'd all have separate shuls based entirely around demographics. And no, no, because it's a good thing when someone who's 21 can see someone who's 61 and they can think about what their future looks like. Or when someone who's 80 can look at someone who's 40 and say, hey, I've been there too. Let me tell you how this really works, kid. Right? We need that stuff in society. It's so easy for us to curate our own tiny little pocket of the universe with only a particular number of tribes people, whatever that tribe might mean to you. And we need these cross-functional, multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-class. I got to me with class warfare stuff like you know, if you know, you know. We need this stuff. We need people of all ages and backgrounds in the same room together having a stake in one another's future. The fact that that's so hard to do when we have devices that allow us to communicate with billions of human beings across the world means I'll always have a job. Anyway, okay, so bottom line with Jewish humor, the key to Jewish humor is that it points out particular elements of culture, but I think that there's a theological spin to it, and I think that's part of why maybe, even though he probably didn't believe it, the Jewish humor meant so much as he would call it, a substitute, or I would call it in support of tefillah, of Jewish prayer. So thank you, Carol, for that question. Now, let's talk to Austin. And Carol was interested in this too, so it's a good segue. So, Jews in music. Okay, so that's a pretty broad topic, right? And the thing is, Jewish people are like everyone else, only more so. And if you think about the music industry, something that I always respected about it when I was a kid and I was Mr. Rock and Roll Guy. By the way, totally different person, totally different life. I was watching so the Osbournes, so quick pause here. The Osbournes, like, like Ozzy Osbourne of blessed memory, like those Osbournes. So they have a family podcast now where they watch old episodes of the Osbournes, like that reality show that we all remember from like 23 years ago. And it's amazing because they talk about like being such different people back then, right? Because they were kids, like the kids were kids, right? And going through teenager stuff, and that's different than when you're in your early 40s. Um, so yeah, anyway, it took me back to like my music days. Obviously, I was not in that world, but just some of the frames of reference, talking about tours and going into the studio and all that. Yeah, so that was really cool. Anyway, that was just an aside. But my experience with the music industry, with the entertainment industry broadly, is that it allowed a lot of different kinds of people. Again, maybe it goes back to this whole like we need cross functional, transversing things in society, right? That bring lots of different kinds of people together. And the thing about the music industry, the entertainment industry, is that you didn't have to have anything other than talent, right? Writing a song is a thing you do in your head. If you have a guitar, you have a career, right? It doesn't care what your background is, although, obviously, if you're famous, a kid of a famous person, then yeah, sure, whatever. Um, it definitely can call you out on things. So actually watching this Osbourne's thing, Jack Osbourne actually made the comment like he has no musical talent at all. Right? Now you would think like if anyone would have musical talents, Ozzy Osbourne's kid. No, none at all. Not he's just not wired that way. The way that Ozzy is. Or was. Gosh, goodness. Hard to even think about that man not being on this planet anymore. Um, my dad wasn't in the music business, but he did work in hotels, nightclubs. He booked bands, as a venue, right? You'd have entertainment come in. And it just always was very meaningful to me to see how, regardless of your background, regardless of anything, if you had talent, you could make it. Now, the entertainment industry is kind of cruel and evil. I think it's actually better now because you can have independent media and you can sort of do your own thing. You don't have to move to New York or LA. You can have a really cool career in Tulsa and you can be doing stuff online and that's it. So love that. Jews have always gone to careers that didn't require anything of you as far as material wealth, careers that other people wouldn't think to go into, careers where there aren't barriers to entry. So things like the insurance business, brokerage, different types of new media, right? So music, TV, film, things like that. Uh, this is a little bit of an aside, but why did Jews get involved in banking? Because we were restricted from farming, right? We were restricted from government. We were restricted from professional trades. So it would make sense that creativity would be where you could go because there weren't limits. So, my favorite Jewish music. Okay, so Kirtan Rabbi, I listen to him probably twice a month, gets me into a really great Shabbat mode. Rabbi Andrew Hahn is Kirtan Rabbi. I've been going on a little bit of a no effects like trip lately. Like I've been listening to a lot of pop punk because I have some buddies that want to start a band and they've asked me to be their vocalist. I know, like what a terrible idea. I can't sing, but in the words of Iggy Pop, if Lou Reed couldn't sing and he couldn't sing, then everyone should sing. So anyway, so I've been like kind of going back and thinking about some of these like punk artists that were Jewish, right? So Lou Reed's another example. Again, and it all goes back to this thing of, there's no barriers to entry because of culture, religion, things like that. There is a growing Orthodox hip hop scene. I was sort of watching it like, whatever, 15 years ago. It's changed over time because the way the music industry works is that you age out or you age into new things. You start off as a rocker living in a van, then you become a rabbi doing a podcast. Who would have ever thought? But anyway, so that's my sort of take on Jewish music, right? It's part of culture. We are part of culture, just like with humor and all of these other things. But the great thing about it is the fact that there's no barrier to entry. And Jews have always had to go into those spaces where there was no barrier to entry. And here we are. So now, jumping back to Carol. So dealing with chronic illness Jewishly. So here's the part, if this were like the 90s, 80s, 90s, we would call this a very special episode. So here's the very special episode moment. So I technically have a chronic illness. It's called transverse myelitis. It's often misdiagnosed as multiple sclerosis. It was when I first was diagnosed, I was first of all diagnosed with transverse myelitis, then multiple sclerosis, then transverse myelitis, then multiple sclerosis again, and most recently transverse myelitis. So there you go. It's an inflammatory disease. In my case, it is where your white blood cells attack your nervous system. And so I have, if you were to like do a scan of my neck, you would see these lesions on C2, C3, and C6 in my cervical spine. And I have nerve damage because of it. So, just like a weird, like you never thought you'd hear this. If I was to put both of my feet in a hot tub, one foot would be hot because it's a hot tub. The other foot would be cold. It's really weird. Sometimes you've seen me at events and I'm kind of shaking. That's just the nerves firing off in weird ways. Sometimes when I get excited, it comes off like a Parkinson's symptom. It's not. It's just that I'm excited. People get excited and, your hands sweat and you whatever, right? Like if you're having a good time or whatever. But for me, it reads like stress because my system doesn't handle stress very well, which is why I became a rabbi, right? Am I right or am I right? Kidding. I got it better than most people. So I'm very lucky. So I'm now out of the multiple sclerosis window. I mean, it would be like a 1 in a trillion chance. And I just made that number up, but I think it's pretty darn close to that. That I'll have what's called a flare up, that I'll have another incident where the white blood cells will decide to attack my spine again. So here's hoping, spit on the floor, don't tempt the evil eye, all that great stuff. So the question is there a particularly Jewish way of looking at this? So I'm going to give a bit of I don't know, this is going to feel like a cop-out answer, but honestly, it's the best one that I have had. So when I was diagnosed, I did the thing where I just called every smart person I knew and was like, what do I do? And it was an Orthodox rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Neidich, who I don't really talk to anymore because I'm not on Facebook, so I miss seeing him. Really great guy in Atlanta, Georgia. And I said, I feel like I keep talking to God and, and it's my prayers, my thoughts, my meditations are going unanswered. And he gave an answer that I think all of you are going to go, wah, wah, but just be with me on this. So it's a bit of a sensitive thing to admit. He said, sometimes the issue when we think God's not talking to us is that we're just not listening. And okay, right. And this is where you go, oh, come on. I thought you were going to give me something better than that. But no, but like, listen. Because at that time, I was going through some like really stressful work-related stuff. And I was just super ticked off and I was just dealing with this thing. And it was like becoming like a flame war on social media. And like there were these bloggers and it was just, I felt like I was being like very personally attacked. And, people were calling me about like this work stuff when I'm dealing with like all of this health stuff. And by the way, I'm about to get married, right? And all this is going down. Yeah. And I kind of thought about what Rabbi Neidich said. And I realized like, oh, here's the thing that's going to happen. I'm going to have times in life where I'm going to not be thinking about, work, right? And other things. I'm going to have like stuff in life. I'm going to have challenges. And I have to ask myself, what's going to be the most important thing? Right? Is it going to be that email? Is it going to be, back in the day, that blog post, that social media post, that reel, that whatever? Is it going to be the opinions of strangers on the internet, or is it going to be the opinions of my mom and dad? Right? And so I realized that this idea of like God is not listening is that, or God is not speaking, is actually no, what's happening in those moments where you're talking to God the most, and key idea here, you feel like you're receiving the least, is because there's barriers between you and the divine. And only you can really do much about that. Um, because we live in an amoral universe where the laws of physics are what they are, and your choices and the things that you have decided are priority, or the obstacles that are in your way, whether they're things that you caused or society has caused or something else, you have to remove those things. And the more you remove those things, the more the divine voice comes to you. And so for me, it was literally deciding like, okay, I had been sort of we didn't have the word influencer yet, but like I'd sort of been building this Jewish influencer business, I guess, if you want to call it that, for like 3 years. And listen, the old phrase, like, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I got out of the kitchen. I've probably deleted my Facebook twice. Once was then, and then just most recently, whatever that was, like 6 months ago. Um, and I just like I couldn't do it. Like I just didn't want to be I kind of had the sense of like, oh, like so this like Twitter thing, this I know it's like so ridiculous to talk this way. So it was like 13 years ago, but like this Twitter thing, that's gonna be like all people are gonna do is be nasty to each other. This Facebook thing, you really? Like really? That's gonna be what life is? Like, hey babe, how was your day? Oh, you won't believe how many comments I got. Like, really? Like that's the way this is gonna go down. And you're going to be like basically decaying as a person, as we all do. Like, sorry, spoiler alert, but maybe me at a faster rate. Um, yeah, like that's just noise that's getting in the way. And so I removed that stuff, and I had people tell me, not in these exact words, but basically like, no, fight back. Like, don't put up with things that people are saying. Don't like let people lie about you online. Don't, try to do some damage control. Try to like get out in front of this thing. And I was just like, no, like who cares? It doesn't matter. I don't have any fight in me. And even Rebbitzin will tell you that, before I got sick, I was someone who fought everything. Oh my God, I just fought everything all the time. And now I don't care. I really don't. I'm the first person to say, guys, I'm out. We're not, nah, we got other things going on. Um, it's just my personality changed. And in big part because I learned that by letting go of those things, I could hear God's voice. And when I heard God's voice, I like actually saw my family, and I actually saw the impact that I could have on people. And I saw my life in a new way. And that was a profound thing. So definitely that was some good stuff. Okay. Let's keep moving on here. So Penn wants to do just like all of the Jewish holidays. All of the Jewish holidays. Literally the bullet point just says Jewish holidays. So maybe that's a little too much. But what I was thinking about, I sort of started with this thing of, Shavuot is like my favorite holiday that nobody knows about. And I kind of want to start a series of different episodes, or maybe it's chapters in a book. I don't know. Maybe it's just titles, because like I'm kind of into titles. I actually have a little notepad online, or on my phone or wherever I have it, and it's just titles, like weird titles of things, and like quarter written sermons. I just do this. Anyway, but maybe it's just a series of Jewish holidays and then like some element to it. So just like going through the Jewish holidays, let me give you what I would call them. Okay. So I'm going to start with the high holidays and move down. So, um, so let's do this. High holidays. So Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, high holidays, the holidays that get a bad rap. And maybe Yom Kippur mostly is the holiday that gets a bad rap. Um, Sukkot, the holiday people are too exhausted to do. Because it's true. Like, you do Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, right? Those are like the holidays, right? And then we have Sukkot, which just like comes in there like a few days later, and suddenly now we have to live in a hut, and then like the kids are out of school even longer, right? And by then, like, people are kind of done. Like, when they've survived Yom Kippur, Sukkot is this like afterthought. But I will tell you something, and here's the deal: my stupid joke about pizza in the hut, you know, repetitive teaching works. You get in trouble if you repeat your sermons over and over again, like in rabbinical school and like, probably any like homiletics class. But listen, you repeat the same messages over and over and over again, they get results. Because Sukkot, everyone's into that now. Only took 8 years of Kehillah to get Sukkot to be the thing that people are the fastest to RSVP to. Okay, so that's those holidays. Simchat Torah, the holiday I love, and I never get to fully celebrate. Could also be Shavuot, because Simchat Torah, right? This dancing with the Torah, and you open up the Torah scrolls, and you read the different sections, whatever. That's actually the holiday people are over. So, maybe my mission for next Jewish year is like make Simchat Torah great again, and really push that like we all celebrate Simchat Torah. I don't know what day of the week Simchat Torah will be. Okay, I think it starts on a Saturday night. Maybe? Or is it the night before? I don't know on this particular calendar. But anyway, well, it'll be Shabbat. Like it'll either be Shabbat or it'll be Saturday night or whatever. So anyway, yes. So let's that'll be, maybe that's a goal. Simchat Torah, the holiday that everybody gives up on, that we never really get to celebrate. I don't know how to dance. I know how to survive a mosh pit. We can't mosh with a Torah scroll though. So we'll have to figure that out. So anyway, if you're interested in figuring out how to make Simchat Torah great again, let's do it. Okay. So moving on to the next holiday. My favorite Jewish holiday is Hanukkah because it's Richmond. So Hanukkah is the most popular thing we do, right? Like 115 people usually each year, right? And that's not even all the RSVPs, because you have people who like don't come, they get sick or other obligations, whatever. And so, yeah, so like, Hanukkah, it is so Richmond. Richmond loves Hanukkah and Passover, and they love Hanukkah more. So for all the holidays people maybe don't care as much about, it is kind of a great catch-all, Hanukkah, that is something everybody experiences together. So that's that one. Okay. My favorite Jewish holiday is Purim, and everyone does a pretty good job, not gonna lie. Like the last Purim party we had, it was like on Monday, and it was at our house. And like, man, listen, generational divide. If you were over 55, you were in the tiki room and you were drinking wine and having a great time. If you were under 55, you were hanging out kind of like near like the Mishloach Manot table and the food, and like probably drinking herbal tea, right? It was great. So anyway, okay, my favorite Jewish holiday is Pesach, and I really mean that. Pesach is a big deal in our house. It was a doozy this year because we did 2 back-to-back Seders, 80 freaking people. And it's my son's favorite holiday. And because it's his favorite holiday, it's now my favorite holiday. Skipping over Shavuot because I've already talked about it. Tisha B'Av, the holiday I just wish we could do once, for goodness sake. Because like it's an important holiday. I've never been able to get anyone to come. Like, I think the last time I tried, I think it was like 5 years ago. Was that about right? Yeah, 5 years ago. Well, no, that'd been 2021. Whatever. It was a long time ago. And like two people RSVP'd, and the tickets were like $10. Don't know. No. Anyway, some minor mentions. Tu B'Shvat, the holiday that, of course, hippies love, because it's just true. Like, if you're a hippie, you love Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat was pretty hopping this year. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Pesach Sheni is my favorite Jewish holiday because it proves that Judaism changes over time to meet human need. Gotta love that. Tu B'Av is my favorite Jewish holiday because you don't have to do anything. Like you can just throw what amounts to a Jewish Valentine's Day party. And then if we get into the fasts, Zom Gedalia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of those holidays are my favorite holidays, and no one I know, including me, observes them because, and here's my thing about this, I get the idea of the minor fasts, and I get like Zom Gedalia and, Ta'anit Esther and like Zom Tammuz, I get all of it, right? However, we don't do it for Yom HaShoah, and I think that that's something worth like giving some thought to. So those are the big ones. I didn't mention all of the other holidays, Sigid, Herzl Day, Yom Haliyah, et cetera, et cetera. Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom Yerushalayim. All of those Israeli holidays are my favorite Jewish holidays because Israel's a beautiful place, and we've got to keep it that way. Because there's a lot of people who think they're doing the right thing, and boy, are they doing the wrong things. So that's that. Okay, so pen, hopefully that met your need for the Jewish holidays. Okay, another pen, and this one is the basics of kashrut. So kashrut, kosher just means fit. It doesn't mean meat and milk necessarily. It doesn't mean forbidden animals necessarily. It doesn't mean all of these things that we make it. It just means what is fit. The rabbis loved categorizing things. And the key to kashrut, I think, is to understand it in terms of relationship. That when you have a certain diet, no matter what it is, right? Like our friend who went vegan. We all have that friend who went vegan. Suddenly, the nature of our relationship changes over something relatively dumb, right? Like the food you put in your body. Like, how does that? But we all know that person who went gluten-free, and suddenly, like their whole world changed. And for some people, that is true. But you notice how you eat puts you in a different place, and kashrut is the food ways of the Jewish people through this idea of categorization, which was what the rabbis were about. The earlier forms of kashrut were about categorization as well, but they were thinking about it differently. The obsession with sort of meat and milk and pots and pans and all of that comes much later. This had to do more with categories of species than much of anything else. Yes, don't boil the kid in the mother's milk. I would make an argument that's a much more Peshat thing. That's a much more literal thing. But no one really knows, and how do I know any better than anyone else? So if you think about kashrut in terms of relationship, right? Because Judaism at its core thinks about this idea of being in relationship with the divine. All relationships have rules. This is just a particular set of rules for a relationship. I am not like Maimonides and these other people who thinks it all makes sense. I don't think that kashrut necessarily sensitizes your soul. I don't think it makes us better. I don't think it exists for the betterment of humanity. There's nothing about it that on an ethical level proves to me that it's better than anything else. It is simply the food ways of the Jewish people to create a distinct peoplehood. And so that's that. Yeah, so that's kashrut. Okay, moving back to Austin. So this is literally just the bullet point, Yitzhak Rabin. You can tell these people all just sent me bullet points, right? Yitzhak Rabin. Yeah, Yitzhak Rabin, last chance we had at peace. And so maybe that was a little cynical. I don't mean the last chance we will have at peace, but perhaps the last chance we had at peace for a long time. Perhaps that's more meaningful, less glib way of thinking about it. I think that what we have to think about, and we have to be very serious about this, is that if you look at Yitzhak Rabin and all other leaders who wanted to make peace, meaning peace with Israel and peace with others, they all got killed. They all got killed, right? The leaders got killed and their people got killed. Jewish, Arab, they all get killed. There's no incentive to make peace if it's just going to lead you to getting assassinated. And that's the problem. There has to be someone in all of these different societies, plural, whose job it is to drag us, to drag them, whoever them is, kicking and screaming into a peaceful relationship with one another. It's the only thing that will work. I don't know who that is. I don't know what policies you have to put together to make that happen. I don't know what that framework is necessarily for that particular element. I know what I'd love to see come out of it, and that's what this next question is going to be about. But that's just the harsh reality. Someone has to do this in all of these different sort of cultures to figure out how we're going to move into the next thing. There has to be someone who is pushing us that way. Okay, let's do a quick commercial break, and then I'll have some more stuff for you. Let's talk about Second Arrow. If you are in Churchill or if you're anywhere, you need to know about our good friends at Second Arrow. They are your advocates. They are your coach, your inspiration, your reality check. They will take the time to actually see you and hear you, and they're pretty funny too. If you're still finding your way with physical therapy and yoga, you can do a one-on-one evaluation. Or if you're ready to just do this thing, you can go on the website and of course, they will get you all set up. We are huge fans of Second Arrow, and that's not just because we use their space. We have congregants who love them and actually found out about us through them. So thank you, Second Arrow, for making that happen. They're blending the ancient movements of yoga and the hard science physical therapy to treat pain, prevent injury, and transition you to a safe, active lifestyle. There is nothing like bodyweight challenges to promote lifelong strength, mobility, endurance, and function. And they also have this cute little coffee shop thing going. It's like a self-service coffee shop. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You should check it out. Anyway, please go to secondarrowrva.com. That's secondarrowrva.com. Check them out, 2200 Carrington Street, right here in beautiful Churchill. So this next question is not really so much a very single topic question. It's more of a broader sort of framework type question. But it's, what are my personal thoughts on how Israel can make peace? And this is after I just answered that one question about Yitzhak Rabin and the fact that there's really no incentive to make peace on a very personal level if you are a leader. So here's my general take on this. I think that it would be a very good thing if this planet, with its 200 and I think it's like 260 countries, tripled the number of countries. Like, why not? Right? Instead of 250, let's have 1,000. Why not? It wouldn't hurt us to have that. Now, I know that there are certain people who would say, yeah, but think about the economy. You're going to have more government and you're going to have more institutions and you got to pay people to do those things, whatever. Yeah. But you already do that, right? Within a certain land mass, you're going to have a certain number of people who are operating at the local, the middle, let's say state level or whatever, and the national or federal, whatever government. So the government's already there. And I get it. Does a country the size of New Jersey need to have its own military? Well, guess what it does? It's called Israel. Right? So we need more countries for more different kinds of people. And in more of those countries, you need to have more cantons, provinces, states, whatever you want to call them, where people are able to live their lives basically by the things that matter to them. So it's a little bit like the laboratories of democracy idea. And I know there's people who are saying well, that's easy for you to say, you're an American. That's kind of how you people are. But we see how it works, and it's not perfect. You think about the United States, we went to war with ourselves over the original sin of slavery. But that being said, with only a few minor skirmishes here and there, the country's held together pretty good. Yes, we're in trying times right now, but we're always in trying times. When Javon said, when has there ever been a time when an election has come up and someone hasn't mailed you a piece of paper that says now is the most important time ever to vote, right? No one has ever sent you a flyer in the mail for a political party or a cause of some kind, and it says meh, you can skip this one if you need to. Right? Or things seem to be going okay. Just stay home, right? That's not a thing. So anyway, I think that generally speaking, the more people can have control of their lives and they can have a sense of their future, the less they're going to mess with you, right? Or mess with each other. And so if you look at Israel, it's a very top-heavy country, right? The number of ministers that you have, and that changes depending on who's in power. You do have local governments. You do have like local schools and mayors and things like that. But you try to build something, it takes forever to get a building permit. The bureaucracy is not that friendly, right? Like, say what you will about, let's say, Richmond or Chesterfield's pretty good. They'll let you pay your they'll let you pay your taxes with Bitcoin. I mean, it's crazy. Um, say what you will about anything that maybe bugs you about government at a local level here or state level, whatever. It's actually not as bad as it is in some places to kind of get things done. To just kind of live your life, to run a business, start a faith community, a nonprofit, to raise your kids, to buy a house, whatever. Now, that doesn't say anything about just the normal life things that get in your way. I'm only talking about government, right? I would say our government, compared to some, does not get in your way that often, and so. This is an issue in Israel because it started off the way that it did, and you had to have a strong central government, and it was a socialist country. And guess what? If you were dealing with malarial swamps and deserts and war, you probably would be too, right? So over time, that's changed. It's become more, I guess, capitalistic and things like that. But you still have this very top-heavy situation. Now, look at the rest of that region, and you have a history of colonization, right? So you have a history of Western countries basically carving up the Middle East along what it thinks are rational lines. And I mean, you have countries like Iraq or Jordan, where I mean they're essentially made up, right? And this is where I'm very much on board with the anti-colonization concept, which is, what about a land for the Kurds, the Yazidis, the Druze, right? Like if they want that, right? The Kurds and the Druze, like that's different. The Yazidis are a small group, like that's all kind of different because like the Druze are generally okay with wherever they are. They kind of just assimilate to the place, um but still, like, I think it would be a good thing. 70%, I think, of Jordan is Palestinian. So, like, there's a Palestinian state. That's a Palestinian state, right? So I don't think it would be a bad thing in thinking about how to make the Middle East a safer place to be thinking about smaller countries and how the Western world, which screwed it up, can empower people locally to have their own lives, to have their own local control, whatever that's going to mean for them. Now, I'm not suggesting we go to war with the world. I'm not, that's not my thing. But I do think that an anti-colonization project that is supported by the West is a good thing. Now, the problem is once you start telling countries, hey, you should really let your people chop them up, right? Probably not going to go over very well. That's why I think that maybe if you can't do that, having more of a provincial state local power system, right? So um, devolve power from the national government down to local peoples, because at least then people can have some sense of control over their lives. And maybe they don't care as much about who the king is or care as much who the prime minister is, but they definitely care about who the governor or the regent or the head minister or whatever, right? Whatever it's going to be. Is because that's like how your kids get educated and how the roads get built and stuff like that. The Middle East is also a culture of religion, of tribe, of family, of clan. And so just kind of honoring the reality of that, I don't think is a bad thing. Our country is far less like that. We're a little bit of a different bag now. But it is true in that region of the world. And so I think if the West could be supportive in that way, that would be great. How you get there, heck if I know. Because there again, it goes back to what incentive does the King of Jordan have in chopping up his country, right? What incentive does Syria or Lebanon or any other number of places have in supporting more regional control, right? Especially if you're afraid that those regions, right, those autonomous regions or states or whatever are going to break off, right? If what you want is a contiguous system. Um, and so in that way, I guess I would be in favor of like a Gazan state, let's say, and a West Bank, if you want to call it that state, right? Or something along those lines, right? Maybe it's not a two-state solution. Maybe it's a 3-4-5. And by the way, this would be great for Israel. What if there were multiple, provinces, cantons, whatever, where there was more local control? Maybe you could have sister cities where, Tel Aviv could be like if there's a state of Tel Aviv, let's say, it could partner in some way with a safe, sane, good partner in peace somewhere like in Hebron or like wherever, and then that's a start, right? You could on a locality by locality basis build relationships, and at that point it just makes sense because you're working together. Countries that trade together don't kill each other generally, so maybe that's a start. I think it was Penn Jillette who said something like if you can learn to buy and sell from each other, then you may learn you actually like each other. And if you like each other, then maybe you'll begin to love each other, something like that. And I think that maybe is a good start, something like that. So some confederations, trade deals. But again, you got to take the national government out of it. The national governments are the problem. Okay, and this last one, complete pivot from everything. So that was sort of the Austin question, the Yitzhak Rabin and Middle East peace stuff. And so now this is a question that everybody asks. And they ask it in different ways. And so this is dedicated to everybody. So the question is, how does Kehillah make decisions, right? Like how do we decide when we're going to have an event? And how do we decide what's going to happen at those events and how often we do things and how does a social group work, whatever. So you might be led to believe that it is very top down. Speaking of the idea of local control, it's very much not. I talked about this in the episode A Day in the Life of a Rabbi, so you should definitely listen to that. That's going to be way more detailed than this is. But it really starts with obligations, right? So life cycle, weddings, things like that. Certain number of days, certain number of hours are allotted to my time with Kehillah. If you want more, let us know. And we extract out those days. So if I have a wedding, that's one less day for let's say a Shabbat service or whatever, right? Because if I have full weekends, I have to take something off my plate, right? So if someone's getting married Saturday night, you are not getting a Saturday morning Torah study, that kind of idea. Okay, so that is decision making, right? And it's not other people sitting down at a board and saying like, well, when are we going to have, such and such? No, it's responding to the realities on the ground of when people need us, right? So there's that. Then there's a 6-month calendar. So we look at what's coming up. At some point you have to decide what you're going to do. So we do it twice a year. What dates are going to be available given what we have to work with as far as the life cycle calendar. So then we put that calendar on there. And then from there, it's spaces. Whose spaces are available? Does it fit into a budget? Things like that. And then from there, what do we actually do is up to you. So this is a lot to do with what's worked well in the past, what people seem to really dig. It has to do with who is volunteering, what they would like to volunteer to do. So this is a bit of a call, I guess, out to everyone in Kehillah land who says, you know what I like about Kehillah is the relationships, right? I think I was actually going back to Penn here. He made a comment once because he's on the board. He said, what would you do if like 400 people showed up to a Shabbat service? And I didn't even know how to comprehend that. But it was a good question, right? And so the group of us, like I think it was Edva, who's our observer. So she does she observes the board on behalf of the community, speaks as the community's voice, said, yeah, I really like the intimacy. Like I like what we do. I like that it's not some huge thing and that it's impersonal, whatever. Right? So that speaks to our energy, right? What makes Kehillah what it is? It's you, and it's your volunteering, and it's what you find interesting. If a group of people came to me and said, Rabbi, we are so done with the Mount Sinai mountain of ice cream. All right, that's it. It was good while it lasted. Let's come up with something new, right? Stuff like that. That's not going to happen this Friday, though. And so that's how that works. And so Kehillah does have a board. The board makes the big business decisions, and I serve at the pleasure of the board. And so if you have ideas, if you have things you want to do, if there's things you're passionate about, if there's a direction that you want to see Kehillah go in, then here is my call out to you. So we're at like year 8. Year 10 in synagogue land is like the big year. That's when the big stuff happens, right? So what we need you to do, dear friends, is think about what's the big thing in year 10? What's the big thing we're going to announce? What's the big bold move we're going to make that matters to you, right? Because we don't live in a bubble. We could live in a bubble, but we don't want to, right? You're the one that makes the decisions here, right? Do we have more of the rabbi, or does he focus more on weddings and funerals and b'nai mitzvahs, right? What matters most to us? Do we want a system where we buy tickets, or do we want a system where we kind of just give something each month and then that's enough, right? Do we want more family programming and we promise to actually go to it? Or do we want more programming in the evenings when parents are fast asleep, right? Whatever it is, you're the one that makes that decision, and you make it through your time, your talent, and your treasure. So with this board meeting coming up, which is at the end of June, we're going to have the big, bold vision stuff, right? We have 2 years until year 10. So it's, what do we want by year 10? And then here's the real move. What do we want to do over the next 10 years that gets us to year 20, right? So it's not just a 2-year. This isn't like, well, how about at the Hanukkah party we have latkes instead of donuts? It's not those kinds of decisions. And most people are good at making those kinds of decisions. Those are the decisions most people like to make. This is the big stuff. This is the oh wow stuff. This is the eyebrow raising stuff. This is the, man, you're really throwing the dice type stuff. What are we going to do between year 8 up to year 10 that gets us to where we want to be in year 10? And then what do we start doing in year 10 to get to where we want to be in year 20? And we need to hear from you. So there's this thing called fan mail. You can respond that way. You can just reply back to that's fine too. Like you can just, reply back to the email. You know how to get in touch with me. Come on, go on the website, whatever it takes. Would really love to hear from you. 2 years to year 10, 10 years to year 20. What do you think needs to happen? Because remember, you matter. Hag Sameach. Thank you for listening to this kind of quirky Shavuot episode. Eat something dairy, take some Lactaid. Bye, y'all. You didn't think you were getting off that easy now, did you? There's other things that I want you to be excited about coming up. Of course, Shavuot, it's going to be great. Totally awesome. But let's kind of kick it more to the future. So May 29th, International Home Hosted Shabbat at Brittany and Austin's. And Edva and Brittany are putting the food together. It's going to be awesome. Got some Indian flavors, got some Middle Eastern flavors. It's going to be good. I'm bringing the wine. So May 29th. Now, you can bring food too. If there's something that you connect to Jewishly that you would like to share as part of this, then please do. But there is a ticket. You just pay for the ticket. And we pay for the food. So May 29th, that's in Chesterfield. So let's fast forward a little bit. June 12th. So the JCC is going to do a Pride Week. Now, this is a little confusing because we do Pride in like September, but June is technically Pride Month. So there's going to be a Pride Shabbat service with Kehillah and Oratid. So this is going to be at the JCC. It's really cool. Friday, June 12th, 6 o'clock. Now, when I say 6 o'clock, I like really mean 6 o'clock. Like Yadid Nefesh is starting at like 6 o'clock. So if you want to be there and you want to schmooze and you want to hang out with friends, show up around like 5:45. And yes, I know there are people who will be late. You'll just be late. It just is what it is. But 6 o'clock, that's when we're jamming. Now, that's going to go until about 6:45. I have promised Avi Remetz that like we will be done at like, 6:55. So there is a little bit of a little bit of a lead there. But anyway, after that, and this is a little bit of a cool thing. So next gen, so if you're part of that, if you're a young adult Jew, or you love a young adult Jew, bring them. This next gen Shabbat dinner. So you're just going to like walk across the hallway and bam, there's Shabbat dinner. So we'll go from davening together at this Pride Shabbat service, Kehillah collab with Oratid, collab with Next Gen, and we will go to the dinner, which is Next Gen collab with Kehillah. So go over that. So here's the thing about that, though. You don't RSVP through us. I know it's confusing. You're looking on the site right now. You're seeing the little Pride balloons thing, and you're like, oh, this is how I RSVP. No. Like, actually read how to do it. If you want to come to the dinner, that's separate from RSVPing for Shabbat service, okay? So Shabbat service, any age, any background, any whatever, please come to that. Next Gen is a young adult thing. So look forward to seeing you at either one of those, both of those. It's going to be great. Then the next day, Shabbat learning and brunch, because I used to put Shabbat brunch and learning, but no, we're gonna promote the learning. Shabbat learning and brunch at Second Arrow. That is June 13th. So that's the next day. So you'll have kind of a nice little weekend thing there. So like you can go to the Pride Shabbat service, and then if you're a young adult, you can go over to the Next Gen dinner, come hang out with me. I'm not a young adult, but like they're letting me in, which is pretty cool. And then the next day you can come to the Shabbat learning and brunch. So love to see you. That gets you all the way through to the end of June. And then we're going to post our whole calendar for like the next 6 months. It's going to be awesome. In the meantime, though, make sure to come to all the great stuff: Shavuot, International Home Hosted Shabbat, Pride Shabbat Service at the JCC, and Shabbat Learning and Brunch at Second Arrow. Yalla bye.